How's your night been?
Yeah, not too bad. Just pretty casual.
The way you like
Just
it?
not really.
No, you like to be busy?
Absolutely. I don't deal with being idle too well, but that's all right. I've just got off tour and I've got a few days off, and then we're into Tommy stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting when you think about Tommy. You know, the album is quite advanced, and yet it was only recorded on an eight track. Like that, that's kind of mind blowing when you think about what they could have done with all the availability of technology today back then.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I think I've been listening to the record a lot over the last little while, and it is I'm struck by how kind of sparse the record is for all its grandiose kind of moments and its moments of like power and bombast. It's pretty open and spacious,
Yeah,
and I think at the time, like from what I know about the making of that album, they probably would have lent on a bit more orchestral stuff. But the thing was that the band were kind of broke at the time that they were recording it, so they would go away and play a couple of shows and use the money they got from their shows to jump into the studio for a few more days to record. So a lot of it was a lot of the sparseness of that record was due to budgetary kind of things. But obviously, but when it turned into a movie and a soundtrack, they went way the other way to the point where I'd find the soundtrack to the movie kind of unlistenable. I think it's a bit overdone, but there's a real beauty to the original record, which is obviously why we're using that as the template for our show.
yeah. Will you use any sort of multimedia stuff like bits from the movies on screens or anything during the show, or just bare bones?
I don't think so. There was talk of a bit of projection kind of stuff, but I think that we want to present the show um, from an instrumental sense, uh, as the Who would have played it live in 69, 70. So we want to make it kind of solely about the band, and also with Hayley and Sarah singing as well. But yeah, I don't think we'll lean too much on any extra bells and whistles.
Okay, it's funny for me because I know the album, but I don't know the history of the album and some of the story. And actually reading about it, I quite find it quite prophetic that you know in the end, it's about a story about someone who ends up trying to, getting addicted to power and it backfires. It's kind of 2023, 2022 in a nutshell, really.
Yeah, it's a pretty prescient story when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that story of becoming addicted to power and fame is yeah. I mean, it's as relevant today as it probably more so relevant today than it was back then.
And it's funny that we're talking about, an album almost, what, 60 years ago. And
Mm,
there's a funny thing about it is that we live in a world where everyone overshares. And now you read about Pete Townshend publishing a narrative about the album
yeah.
before it was done, and he regrets doing it because it sort of forced the album to follow the narrative instead of more freeform.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that was part of his process, and that was true also for his next project after that, which was Lifehouse, which became Who's Next. I think he was just like he was just fizzing like a barocca with ideas
Yeah,
and wanted everybody to know about them, but I think more so with the Who's Next Lifehouse thing. He wanted to share them maybe even before he had time to figure out what they were himself. Yeah.
yeah. And it's funny that the Who is very much an early model of what UMI is for me.
Right.
Whereas, there's a sparseness, but also there's this, reckless abandon, being lucky to see you guys a couple of times now. You guys sort of don't like to stay in your lane. You go off on a few tangents and you just want to make it loud and in your face. Is that pretty good assessment?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think there are definitely parallels there. And I can speak from my perspective, having grown up, having grown up as a fan of UMI. Like, I mean, the Who were kind of musical ground zero for me, and that's where it was through the Who and through seeing, hearing the Who's music and seeing the Kids Are Right and seeing Pete Townshend play, the physicality of it. And I was such a nervous, awkward kid that gave me the I almost felt like seeing him play gave me not even a sense of escapism, but like a way of communicating. Like, I was super shy and awkward, and I couldn't really talk to anybody. I certainly didn't know how to express my feelings. And seeing Pete Townshend play the guitar, even on an old VHS, it was sort of an epiphany for me, and that made me feel like that there was a way to communicate without, even if I didn't have the gift of the gab, like I could communicate with this and with that, then as much as anything else. And that was the thing, like growing up, and the first time I heard and saw UMI as a kid, I was like, oh wow, there's a band, because by that point I was already like a massive Who fan, and by that point, whilst I didn't think that UMI were copying the Who, but like it's like, here's a band in the here and now that are imbued with the same kind of spirit, the same fire, the same kind of like, maximum R&B and all that kind of thing that I loved about the Who. So yeah, UMI again, that was completely outside of, like a few years later, having the opportunity to join the band. It was an epiphany for me that like there could be a band in the here and now that could evoke that same kind of energy. And yeah.
Do you think guitar players today have totally missed the point on how important a big giant ass open chord is?
Depends, really. I think there's still as many guitar players out there who get that, but I certainly don't see any of them if I switch the TV on, or if I put the radio on. Like, it's, there's still there are amazing guitar players out there, and there are people who are kind of like, who push it forward in a lot of ways. It's just a shame that those guitar players aren't pushed to the fore. And it's the same like growing up hearing, like, growing up in the mid to late 80s, hearing whatever the latest kind of Eric Clapton thing was. Yeah, I don't know. Eric Clapton kind of left me a bit cold, really. Like, it wasn't any kind of like, there's obviously a dexterity to it and all that kind of thing. But, it's the same, when you look at a guitar player now who's held up by a lot of guitar players as the guy, like someone like John Mayer or something like that, I don't think he's doing anything terribly different to what Eric Clapton was in the 80s. And so, yeah, I mean, there are definitely guitar players out there and who yeah, there are, definitely guitar players out there who get it, but they're either of a certain vintage, or they're just not, they're probably out there playing at the old bar tonight or something like that, and they're not given much of a stage.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, What's the song that poses the biggest challenge to represent live for you guys out of this set?
From Tommy, it would. I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely like there's Cousin Kevin is. That song was written by John Entwistle, and he has just such an idiosyncratic way of writing that he lots of jarring chord progressions that when you listen to them sound like they fit, but when you sit down to go, okay, this is that, and then they go, whoa, where did that come from? And then it's just like all these kind of, and it's right across the record. There are so many songs that have these like sneaky little changes of key or chord changes or like odd harmonies that just come out of nowhere. Just like, yeah, having listened to the record a couple of hours ago again, probably Cousin Kevin or Underture, which is like an extended version of Sparks. That's quite a sprawling piece. That's like probably 10 minutes worth. And I think for us, we can learn it, but there's no real way of figuring out exactly how we're going to do it until all four of us or five of us instrumentalists, given that we've got our friend Liam McGorry playing keys and French and trumpet. There's not really going to be any way of knowing until the five of us instrumentalists in a room together. And because it's like, I'm sure when the Who were in the studio making that record, I'm sure they didn't play anything the same way twice. Like, I mean, especially if you've got Keith Moon as your anchor, it's always going to be completely different. So, I think maybe those kind of things instrumentally will be more of a challenge. But from what I've heard, Tim's gotten together with Hayley and she's doing great. And I just know from knowing Sarah, her capability as a vocalist and a performer, that she's just going to knock it out of the park anyway. So so I think it's more just, and that's why the first 3 or 4 days of rehearsal are just the four of us plus Lamb working it all out, because if you know the record, there are so many ebbs and flows to it.
Yeah. Now, while it's not very Who-like, I do think at some point during this run, the kimonos do need to come out. It's been a while since they've been there. I think that would be a really interesting composition of the Who in the kimonos. Personally,
I don't know. Tim is a huge fan of Rush, so I may have to confer with him. We might want to keep the kimonos for when we do our Rush tribute concert.
Just leave the Neil Peart camel toe section out of that photo.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that something that you'd love to do down the track? Is a Rush?
Oh, look, to be honest, I would. I mean, it's music that I would love to tackle.
Yeah.
Having just come off a Pink Dark Side thing, we're doing Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, and jumping straight into this, I'm kind of looking forward to us paying tribute to our own music next, I think.
Now, as you said, you've got Hayley Mary and the mighty McLeod along for the ride. So do they more sit back as like the I hate to use the term, but the Jimmy Barnes backup singers up on the little platform? Or are they going to be sort of front and center?
No, absolutely not. No, they're singing a lot. A lot of the lead parts are sung by them. Most of them, actually. Like Tim will probably sing a few, but mostly it's split between both of them, which works well range wise, because Roger Daltrey and even Pete's range was insane. So it's good to have some female voices in there to bolster things. So so it'll be mainly, actually, I don't think they'll be doing much in terms of yeah, I don't think they'll be doing much at all in a backup role. They'll probably be front and center more than anyone in the band will be, I think. Yeah.
Is it just going to be the album front to back, or do you come out and do like Won't Get Fooled again for an encore or anything like
that? Yeah, no. We're definitely doing an encore. I've definitely thrown Won't Get Fooled again into the ring, but I'm not sure that one. The jury's still out on that one, I think. But yeah, we will definitely come back out and do a, because it's obviously it's a double album, so we won't be playing a full second set, but we'll come back out and do a smash and grab encore of our favourites. Yeah.
Well, I'll throw this in the ring for Won't Get Fooled again. I've heard a couple of bands do it where each person takes a verse, and that's a killer way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've played that live before a few times, and it's I think just the thing will be just like syncing up with the synth track, because that's such an integral part of the song. It's just like we need, the band really needs to lock into that if it's going to work. So yeah.
So what do you want people to take away from the night when they leave the show?
Oh, well, I guess obviously we just want people to we want, and obviously people, for the most part, are either fans of our band or fans of the record, or and there certainly has to be a, if you do like Tommy and UMI and the Venn diagram, there will be like there's that chunk there that of people that appreciate both. So I think more than anything, it's such a powerful piece of music. We want to, I don't know, we just want to leave people kind of sated but exhausted by the end, I guess.
And then what happens with UMI? Do you go back for a new record or just a tour?
Well, yeah, I think we've got some shows towards the end of the year, but like I said, I think we'll be looking towards paying tribute to our own music, in terms of definitely working on something new, I think, at this point. And I don't want to, I wouldn't want to speak out of school on it, but I think we're probably, musically, this next record, what it's shaping up, we've already kind of come up with in its nascent form, will probably be completely different to anything that we've done before. So, we'll probably start looking at that as soon as we might even start looking at it while we're on tour. Don't know yet, but I'm excited to see what's around the corner for the band.
Awesome, man. I'll let you get back to your night and try and stay busy, and I'll see you at the show up here.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Thanks, Davey. Have a good night, man.
Thanks so much.
Bye.